want you to picture two scenes in your head. The first is John Howard in 1996, where he's basically telling Victorian farmers he's going to take their guns. And the second one is ScoMo in the Bega Valley during the bushfires, where people refuse to shake his hand, and he is like a deer in the headlights. And his reaction to the situation makes the situation so much worse because he does not know how to handle the situation. In those two scenarios, who handles it best? The answer is clearly John Howard. I think he handles it in a very effective way. He fronts up, he looks him in the eye, and he goes, we're implementing this policy. It's going to suck for you. These are the reasons why we're doing it. I hear your concerns. Get with the program. This is how it has to be to move forward. Very effective. And I'm using liberal versus liberal to try and keep a controlled variable so that you don't think it's got some partisan slant here. We're not looking at the policies or anything. We're just looking at the ability to handle politically difficult situations. And the reason why I think John Howard is so much better equipped to handle this situation, well, the ultimate reason is I think he has been battle hardened in a way that Scott Morrison never was. Now, there is a generational difference. I think, I know boomers cop a lot of it, but I really think, when it comes to generational issues, I think Gen X has as many sins as boomers do, but boomers just off, like the weight of Gen X's sins gets put on boomers. Anyway, I think there's a classiness of Howard's generation that got lost in the 10 to 15 years that came in the generation afterwards. Anyway, there's not only that factor, but I think in John Howard's political conditioning, he was given the ability to have away days and to know how to act when he's on foreign territory, politically speaking. And I think the biggest reason behind that is he unsuccessfully ran a campaign. And I think it is a really important learning process. And as we look through big political figures in Australia, one of the common threads amongst so many of the successful ones is that they had to really graft to get into Parliament in the first place, and it came through failure first. You do have Paul Keating, who gets Blaxland on first time of asking and ends up having a successful career. He's a freak of nature. Paul Keating is not replicable. Some of these other people are a little bit more replicable. And I think we also see another thread in unsuccessful Australian prime ministers where they have an electorate cleared out for them, and they, I think, miss out on a lot of formative experience in actually, if you can flip an electorate, or if you know how to act in foreign territory because you've spent your fair share of time campaigning and running as the candidate in an unwinnable seat, I think it really does benefit you when you ultimately are the face of a campaign because you know how to go to those foreign places quite well. Foreign, I'm talking politically, not obviously nationally. Now, John Howard, if you don't know his story, he tried to get into state parliament before he got into federal parliament, and he was unsuccessful for the seat of Drummoyne. And this one, it wasn't a safe Labor seat by any means. It was actually expected to go to the Liberals, but it didn't in the end, and it was quite embarrassing for Howard, and he felt terrible in the aftermath. But he had this failure, but he also had to learn how to campaign on Labor territory. And you read Lazarus Rising, you look at anything that John Howard says at length when he's not getting soundbited on Sky News. He understands the Labor argument very well, and he understands the reasons why people vote for Labor very well. It's one of the great tragedies to the Liberal Party as to why they lost this guy, because he is able to speak into the mind frame of someone who votes Labor. Like ScoMo's sort of play to try and win the undecided voter or the Labor voter would just be like, I'm throwing money at a situation or scare you with tax. John Howard actually had a bit more whereabouts to construct an argument for work choices from a pro-workers' rights. It's crazy if you think about it. His argument was, you look at our unemployment rate that hasn't been eradicated completely. If you are so big on solidarity, why don't you forego your wage increases or minimum penalty rates or anything like that to make sure that we can give full employment to everyone else who's looking for a job? Anyway, you notice this multiple times as you go through Lazarus Rising. He can construct an argument for a very stereotypically pro-Liberal Party policy, but use a Labor lens to do it. He's very good at it. And I think we've kind of, because we've had, 20 years since he's been in, we've kind of forgotten his ability to actually do this. But John Howard, I think, apart from just his sheer brilliant intellect, and, I'm no fan of John Howard, but I'm never going to deny the fact that he has a brilliant intellect, he was battle-hardened. ScoMo wasn't, and I think this is really important context. ScoMo basically gets the seat of Cook vacated for him, and he waltzes in. He's not the popular candidate on pre-selection. The other guy was way more popular, but as one of his senators exposed, we already knew the story, but the senators made it painfully obvious in her nuclear speech when Conchetta went nuclear in Parliament, basically as... he'd previously been the head of the New South Wales Liberal Party, used that influence to run a smear campaign against the guy that was going to beat him in Cook, which forced him to step aside and allowed ScoMo to waltz in and be be my local member at least. And I think you notice that when ScoMo is the leader of the Liberal Party, a decade later or so, he does not know how to handle politically tough situations. He doesn't know how to spend extended time. By the way, Cook is safe, very safe Liberal seat for anyone who doesn't know. And ScoMo really struggles in that bushfire situation. He does not know how to handle like public and humiliation, rejection. Again, all he's conditioned to really at this point is the photo op to walk in, get the good PR and waltz on out and put it up on socials or whatever. He hasn't had that extended experience. Again, if he's going to front up and face a hostile crowd, it's usually in a debate format or a big speech format where he can basically go, Labor's trying to fix everything through tax. That's not going to work. And he doesn't have that right of reply right in front of him. And he doesn't have to look people in the eye in a one-on-one context and explain himself. And I think it's to his great detriment. He obviously struggled with that situation terribly in 2019. And it's something like in the Barcaldine Academy, we've got a Discord that's become very active. We actually have I'm obviously not going to leak who this is, but you've got a 1 in 40, however many seats the Libs have. He ran in a safe Liberal seat. He was the Labor candidate in a safe Liberal seat. And this isn't cope. I promise this isn't cope of him going, you actually want to run. There's real wisdom to it of basically it's invaluable experience putting your hand up to run for a non-safe Labor seat. A non-Labor safe seat, that is, to basically get a feel for what it's like on the ground in Norway territory. And just think about the number of reps. Like if you are, on a voting booth and you've got people coming by, if you were in a safe seat, the amount of times people will come up to you and will go, parasite, or like whatever it is, the reps are just going to be far fewer than they will be in hostile territory. And so to have prolonged experience as the candidate in hostile territory, it just gives you so many more iterations of having to know how to handle public humiliation or public rejection. And often, it takes a very, I would say, rude character to make a bit of a political spectacle for just a local candidate running for a party you don't like, but it does happen very frequently. The ability to learn how to handle those situations is invaluable. And this is what he was saying. That probably narrows it down a little bit, but people in the Barcaldine Academy know who this is. For the sake of their future political career, I'm not going to give any more revealing things about who this person might be. But the wisdom is really sound here. Have extended periods of time trying to run, like I'll rephrase what I'm trying to say here. If you have aspirations of being in Labor and you live in a non-safe Labor seat, don't view that as a burden. View that as a massive opportunity to get conditioned. And not only will it make you a better candidate down the line in the future, but it is also a massive opportunity to showcase yourself to the party. If you get a safe seat vacated for you, you are taking from the party. Effectively, the party is going, this is one of our assets that we have. We're going to give that asset to you, and we'll see how you go with it. But you start from a position of being indebted to the party because you've taken one of the safe seats that there's a lot of competition for. If you can either flip a marginal electorate, or if you can eat away into the margin on a non-safe Labor seat, that is you actually giving to the party. And the party does notice this, and to be able to go, hey, I've actually made huge inroads in this local area. I've got a track record to my name. Yeah, sure, I haven't been in office or anything, but I have actually been able to increase the standing and the position of the party, rather than eat upon the fruits that have been laid. Rather than eating the fruit or eating the fruit that is grown from the seeds that have been planted by other people. The other thing as well is that when it comes to campaigning, it really is quite crazy how your form of experience shapes your default campaigning mode later down the track. So obviously with wisdom, you grow and you change. But when you're running a campaign, all you have to worry about is the campaign itself. You're not actually, you're not in government. You don't have any experience in either being the governing party or in trying to build a case for an opposition, or just trying to navigate the day-to-day maintenance of being a local member. So you purely get to target all of your focus on the campaign, and so then you inherit those habits and you keep those habits going. Same for learning to teach or something like that. When you're a prac student, those habits that you set, because all you have to worry about is the one lesson that you're going to teach, they carry through into your teaching. When you're a teacher, you kind of live off the fat that you accrued from when you had more time just to focus purely on teaching lessons, because then your responsibility expands to having everything else that happens in a school. So to have formative experience actually campaigning in hostile territory is so good for conditioning you to be a battle-hardened soldier. And one of the craziest patterns that you look at is as you look at people who have lost their first attempt at getting into parliament, It's a pretty damn good list of characters right here. So Bob Hawke, now, again, you often think of him as having wills vacated for him, just waltzes on in because he's ACTU royalty, but he actually unsuccessfully contests as early as 1963. Kevin Rudd unsuccessfully contests in 96, and then he gets in 98. John Curtin, if you look at his story, both in Victoria and WA, has 5,000 attempts at trying to get in before eventually getting Fremantle. John Howard unsuccessfully goes for Drummoyne. Harold Holt unsuccessfully goes for Yarra. This is a common thread in very politically successful candidates across Australia, is that it often starts with an unsuccessful attempt at getting into Parliament. Now, you could argue that part of it is just, successful people are going to have hunger and drive, and so you're always going to get a big sample size of contested electorates because they're always going to put their hand up to have a go. But to see the number of unsuccessful campaigning attempts for all of these politicians that end up being very successful, I think you look at that and you go, okay, this isn't something that I think we could ignore as a pattern. And by contrast, if you look at people who have safe seats completely vacated for them, you look at Julia Gillard, Malcolm Turnbull had to, the seat wasn't, Wentworth wasn't vacated for Malcolm Turnbull because he basically put up heaps of his own money to more or less buy the seat and recruit heaps of people into the Liberal Party to vote for him to be the candidate for Wentworth. And then obviously you look at ScoMo, the ultimate example of having a seat cleared for you. Not very successful prime ministers. Policy aside, just looking at purely were they able to accomplish the agenda that they wanted to, and were they able to maintain long-term electoral appeal. None of those three were able to do that very effectively. And so when you look at this pattern, I think we can see, okay, having extended time in a seat that isn't the party of your choice, and obviously for me I'm talking to Labor people, but if you are from the Liberal Party or another party, you can translate this and apply it to your own political context. It is valuable experience that ends up really benefiting you down the track. So if you are happening to live in a non-safe or safe non-Labor seat, it's not a curse. It's a real blessing down the track. And I would strongly suggest if you do have political aspirations, try and have a go running in a non-safe Labor seat because it will serve you very well down the track and can also help massively boost your profile in the party.
Hi there. I'm Cam and I have a YouTube channel with over 5 million views on Australian political history. And at the end of 2025, I built a program that, as we speak, is helping people get chosen to be candidates for the Labor Party. Let me tell you how. For starters, it covers the entire Labor history of the major states. Each state has 2 books available on their Labor history, but thankfully I could get my hands on them and make easy to digest modules so that my students have the ultimate perspective of the party they're in and why certain policies worked and others just didn't. You can quiz yourself at any point to check your understanding. But the Barcaldine Academy is much more than just a lecture hall. It's a classroom with legends across all the states that are helping people get connected and meet other people in the Labor machine. Others are giving each other feedback on their motions, and some are even helping others get beers with sitting politicians. So couple a well-connected person with someone who has actual perspective on the history of their party and the challenges that they faced, and you get this. Since 1909, our parties have been divided over one battle line. The party that thinks that unions should have a role in making decisions, and a coalition of others who think that the unions simply don't belong at the governing table. If you want to grow an influence so that you can shape that very union party, I think that I might be able to help. Click this link right here to apply to join the Barcaldine Academy. I'll get back to you pretty quickly.